like different cultures around the world, they do specific things, right? Like that you think, why would I ever do that?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, um, in Italy, right?
Yep.
Oh, this is actually a coffee story. You know how, hold on, boost the volume. Here, headphones. Um, you know how like when you go to a different, like orange juice,
Yep.
you're like, oh, it's just fresher here,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you're like, why don't I just squeeze the orange juice, make fresh orange
Mm-hmm.
juice? Right? It's logical. So when we went to Italy, I was asking for coffee, and they'd give you like these small espresso shots, right, of coffee, and then you're like, no, I want the longer, like the actual cup of coffee, and they're like, oh yeah, it's Americano. But then I started like thinking about it, like why do they drink such small shots of coffee? Because when I drink coffee, like it feels kind of gross because there's so much acid in my body. Because like coffee's pretty acidic, so
Okay.
imagine filling up to wake yourself up. You have to drink so much coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got an espresso machine for Christmas, and because I've been like talking about it, so I drank the espresso, and not only is it like a tiny bit, like this size right here. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
This size right here is all I need, and it lasts like the whole day, like the wakefulness. I
Mm-hmm.
was I was like amazed. So it's like you can get so much more caffeine out of a smaller, like
Right.
like smaller amount of fluid,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're like, oh, that's why they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Italians with their like one shot and then they're like going about their day. They're not like holding on to coffee all the time. Like people at work, like you have a coffee mug,
Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying? But if you just took the espresso shot, like I haven't had to have a Monster. Like you know how much I drink Monster,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
pretty shocking that like the espresso stabilizes the amount of caffeine and it like I guess slow release. Maybe it's like our human bodies know what to do with this compared to like the crash of Monster.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that. It's like what other
I guess
secrets
it's more
from
like
around the world?
I'd have to look into like how the enzymes or like how the breakdown is done for espresso.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like so another great example of this is if you so a lot of like the Mediterranean diet, right? You know how they squeeze so they have like a lot of we'll say Greek potatoes actually. So Greek potatoes are like carbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they put oil, so that's fat.
Mm-hmm.
And then they squirt um, like the lemon on top, right?
Yep.
So you're like, oh, that's just like flavorfully good. They've been doing it for thousands of years, right? And what you find out is the reason why people have like, like the Inuit communities, they have like diabetes because they're just eating potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just eat a potato itself, your body can't regulate the carbs fast enough. Or like it's too quick for the sugar and your blood imbalance, right? Um, I'm not a scientist, so I won't like go into the specifics. But what I found out through like nutrition is the oil and the lemon counteract the carb breakdown, so it slows it down and regulates it, so you don't get like a high
Mm-hmm.
like spike and crash.
Right.
Isn't that wild? It's
Yeah.
like, but you guys have been doing this forever,
Mm-hmm.
and we're now like catching up, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't more like I think it's like lost in I don't say translation, it's like lost in knowledge.
Yeah,
It's a lost in
right.
knowledge thing. Or it's like there's a reason why we started doing that, then we forgot. Like you know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
we
Yeah,
don't we
yeah,
didn't ask the question of why we're doing it, we were just doing it.
yeah, totally.
Right? So
Yes.
then when you bring it like as you're saying the Inuit people just eating potatoes, well that at that point they didn't understand why they were adding other things to it.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And we thought it was just like, oh, it's flavoring, right? You're just making Greek potatoes out of this thing, but it's like, no, those two other things actually help regulate the amount of sugar. You just didn't know that.
Right.
But like, they weren't scientists. They were just doing it through, I guess, like bro science back in the day.
No. I don't know if it's necessary. Like I don't know like how you come into that level, right? Maybe it was science at that time. Like
Oh, true.
like they were
Somebody actually
having
studied it.
yeah. Like you don't know like
That's
when that was figured out, right? It's not like they
Yeah,
just knew right
facts.
away or bro science. It was just like
Yeah,
I feel like
true.
there was like things. I feel like there was some form of science. Like you don't just grow
Yeah.
potatoes and then just you add other things. There's a reason you do that, right?
For sure, but I meant more like contemporary science, where you're like actually looking at blood sugar levels and all that.
Yeah, no.
It's
Now
more like
now
how
that
do
we
you feel?
have yeah exactly now that we have maybe they had instead of like doing the blood, like actually having levels to look at, they probably were seeing it based on over time testing. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure.
trial and error kind of thing. So it's like now we can
So,
actually see the direct effects
and but through like science, we can like
through
corroborate
yeah
its
through
effect, the
modern
efficacy.
science. Yeah, through modern
Yeah.
science.
So there's another thing that so the Gracies, they have this thing called the Gracie diet,
Mm.
and the grandfather of wait, how's the connections?
It's
Choppy?
good.
No?
Nope.
All right, solid. Ethernet cord. That was the trick. uh, so so the Gracies, the grandfather was more of like a yogi than he was a jujitsu person. So he actually studied yoga simultaneously with
Hmm.
jujitsu, right? And what he was saying is like jujitsu is great for like fighting, but we need to learn how to make the body more um like we have to take it more holistically. Your body is a temple, like very yogic, right? And what he did was he was doing observation through like what do I feel when I'm eating
Hmm.
chicken plus this?
Right.
And then he'd write it down like, okay, what about this combination? And then
Hmm.
he came up with what they call the Gracie diet, which is a way to combine your foods so you actually feel better throughout the day for training. But like you were saying, it's not like it's anecdotal science, but it's not like blood work. They didn't check the blood work.
Yeah.
But that's probably what they did back in the day. There's like, oh, don't do this, do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
They're running through more intuition,
Yeah, I think
right?
what he was saying too, like, yeah, like what you're feeling, like
Yeah,
how
yeah,
was your
totally.
day?
Yeah,
Like, did you feel more tired today or
for
whatever?
sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, like it, and I'm noticing that with the espresso, where it's like I'm rising and falling really quick with the energy drinks. Coffee doesn't last me anymore. And then
Hmm.
with the espresso, it's like, oh, this is it. This is the answer,
Hmm.